Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is Piers Guy of Guy Energy, and it's great to have you today, Piers. And first of all, please do let us know and tell us all about you, all about your business, and when do you start it?
Okay, well, I started a long time ago, 25 years ago,
Okay.
in renewable energy when it was back then and really almost a cottage industry. And I specialized in wind energy,
Okay.
and that really has grown from this kind of niche all the way through to, the real mainstream. In fact, it's so big now that I saw on the news today that they think Russian ships are spying on the wind farms in order to maybe launch some kind of espionage attack. So it just shows you how important wind has become in terms of powering up the UK. I also worked overseas. I spent much of my career working for Danish, Dutch, and Swedish multinationals who
Okay.
developed wind farms and renewable energy activities, and invested a huge amount into the UK in doing that process. So I guess you could say my last corporate job was head of offshore wind development for Vattenfall, which is a large international Swedish utility. And I was also their UK country manager. So I headed up that business in the UK, which was responsible for about 3 billion of investment in UK infrastructure over that period. But now I've got my own business, and my primary interest, I live in Cornwall, I'm based in Cornwall, I grew up here. And my primary interest at the moment is helping Cornwall try and realise its potential in terms of new renewable energy and decarbonisation activities, over the next decade. It's
Yes.
a very exciting area, and it's an area that I have various clients involved with, and also I work with Celtic Sea Power, which is a council-owned company that promotes floating offshore wind in the Celtic Sea.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
so there's some of that kind of public sector work as well.
Oh, great, great, great. Yeah, and I know Jeremy as well from Celtic Sea Power as well. So, great. And but yeah, that is I'm really, really just just really would say encouraged, about your just your passion for renewable energy and seeing that grow and raising awareness, especially here more in Cornwall. And with that said, it comes, with challenges. I was gonna say, I mean, regards to challenges that obviously back in 2020 we had COVID. And I mean, how did COVID-19 itself impacted your business, and what have you what did you do? What actions did you take to overcome those challenges?
Well, it obviously changed the way I was doing business, because previous to that I was traveling a lot more internationally.
Mm.
Um, and so it definitely initially affected my clients, particularly if they had activities in areas where there were full lockdowns. Most of my clients work internationally as well as in the UK, so uh, basically everything slowed down quite a bit.
Okay.
My work became primarily office based, as did everybody else's. But we found ways of working that made sense and managed to keep things moving. But I definitely think it certainly slowed down the implementation of renewables projects. There's no question of that. And I guess, although luckily it hasn't affected my business directly too much, at this point, there's no question that the supply chain into the renewables industry has been affected.
Yes.
And so you see that now with longer lead times for equipment, higher costs for equipment. And so that sort of whole period of time is now still having an impact, in terms of prices and timescales. So I think we are I think we're gradually getting back onto an even keel with it all. But yeah, it's had a big impact, and I think that impact's still going to be felt for probably at least a couple more years.
Sure, sure. And one thing you did say, speaking to you about, I guess, the supply chains, and that has hit almost every industry. That especially it's in the construction industry as well. With
Yeah.
prices rising as well, cost of living, and just materials, and trying to get a hold of those as well. And so, I mean, that's still a challenge for today. And speaking of challenges, I mean, what challenges are you facing today, and what are you doing about them?
Well, I guess the big challenge that I'm involved with specifically at the moment is around ensuring that we get proper benefit from floating offshore wind that's going to be developing in the Celtic Sea.
Yeah.
It's the Celtic Sea is a completely new part of the UK for offshore wind development. Very important, and if plans go ahead as the government would like, then it will become one of the most important areas for energy generation in the UK. And my mission, if you like, is to help make sure that the regions that surround the Celtic Sea, so that's the southwest of the UK, Cornwall included, of course, and Wales, properly benefit from the supply chain opportunities and the renewable energy that will come ashore in these areas, because it's a huge opportunity, long-term jobs, a consistent build out and operation of projects for decades to come. So it's probably a once in a lifetime opportunity for these regions and for the people living in those regions. So for me, it's important that we grab this opportunity. We won't be able to do everything because there are certain things that we just simply don't have the capacity to do. These are huge structures, and we need to work together.
Yes.
So no one port, no one area can do all this on their own. So it's really exciting and inspiring to come together with other industry players and other regions to try and work out how to make this happen. And this is part of Celtic Sea Power's role, really, as a bringing together parties to cooperate and coordinate so that we can make a really strong offering to the industry, to international developers and international companies, to say, look, base yourselves here, invest in this region, invest in capacity, and you'll have a long-term fruitful business in the Celtic Sea. So that's one side of it. And then on the power side, renewable energy and in these regions, particularly focused on that for Cornwall at the moment, because Cornwall is kind of like at the end of the line.
Okay.
So if we can get upgrades to our system starting down here, then those benefits will not only be felt in Cornwall, but they'll be felt, in the whole of the southwest, for example, and should give rise to major opportunities. So, for example, the critical minerals industry in Cornwall, lithium, tungsten, tin, those kind of really important minerals for the energy transition.
Yes.
They need powering up, to get to a kind of scale that the government would like to see, and we need to see. And the opportunities are here, but we need to get the power in to power those up in a sustainable way for the future. So that's very exciting. Of course, that will also spread out to other industries and enable them to decarbonize, because without a good level of low cost renewable energy, you can't really decarbonize. So making sure that we're in contention for that power, and making sure that we're holding our hands up and saying, make sure when you do these designs, power comes into the regions, and these are the reasons why we think it should happen and why it's a good idea, and hoping to influence the major players, National Grid, the Crown Estate, and others, to make the right decision.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I mean, the ambition of the plans that you have is like, wow, that's major. And yeah, I'm just like, I'm really just rooting for you and encourage you just to stay with this. And yes, and and just hearing you and your passion, and it really just trying to bring people together, resources together, and to work together, almost locking shields on one another, to make this happen. And that's so inspiring. And I was going to ask you, well, I mean, what you do now is great, but if you had to start all over again, what would you do differently?
Um, well, in terms of the industry itself, I don't think I would have chosen another industry because I think it's been a fantastic journey to take something so small
Yeah.
to be involved in that journey.
Uh-huh.
And I think most people that have been involved would say the same thing. What would I do differently? I think it's always easy to look back in hindsight, but I think for me, I probably would have I probably would have just had a little bit more focus
Yeah.
on 5 to 10 years ahead all the time.
Okay.
It's very easy to end up reacting to what's happening right in front of you. But what is, I think, important in business, and what I learned over the course of time, and I apply now, but I probably didn't do years ago, was looking at the fundamentals of what makes a business interesting, looking at the ecosystem around it, and trying to ascertain what are the foundation blocks of that industry or that business, and looking at how they might develop over the next 5 to 10 years, and making decisions that basically play to those strengths and play to those pillars. And there was a lot of things that you looked at and you thought, well, I just can't see that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But if you actually reference that against the fundamentals, you could see actually that is going to happen. It may take a bit longer, but I can see it's going to happen. And I
Yes.
think planning with that kind of mindset of looking 5 to 10 years ahead, I think is something I wish I'd done a bit more of.
Okay.
And I would recommend that is the way you look at it. Obviously, you still got the day-to-day stuff to deal with, but think how is this going to develop in the future? What fundamentals are there that
Yes.
I need to pay attention to? And they're a good example perhaps is in the wind industry. I remember when I first started, like a big turbine was like 400 kilowatts, which is still quite big, but it's tiny now. Now we talk about 20 megawatts, which is
Yeah.
like,
Wow.
it's like 40 times bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember speaking to an engineer in Denmark, back 25 years ago, and he said to me, I think 1 megawatt is probably the limit.
Okay.
When you plan ahead and you see the trajectory, you would have been able to say back then, no, I can see this is 5 megawatts, this is 10 megawatts, and start planning projects and considering the implications of that ahead of time is very helpful if you're in the development industry.
I see. I see. Well, I will say lastly, because I'm just looking at the time, what advice would you give to an 18-year-old who wants to start their own business?
Follow your passion.
Come on.
Follow your passion. If
Yeah.
you're interested in something, or you think you might be interested in something, follow it.
Come on. That's good.
And I think in the end, if you can do something that you think is of value to society, value to the environment, and is also your passion, then you really got a fantastic combination. Go for it.
That's so good. Well, I was going to say, Piers, thank you very much. This really concludes the interview, and really, really enjoy your time today.